Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let us introduce ourselves. We are from the fifth group, consisting of Khoirun Nisa, Widyaningsih, Viola Setyowati, Fildzah Tita Adani, and then the last Ayu Wijiastuti.
The Man He Killed by Thomas Hardy. Had he and I but met by some old ancient inn, we should have sat us down to wed, tried many a nipperkin, but ranged as infantry and staring face to face. I shot at him as he at me, and killed him in his place. I shot him dead because he was my foe, just so. My fool, of course he was. That's clear enough, although he thought he'd list, perhaps, of hands like, just as I, what sort of work, had sold his traps, no other reason why. Yes, quine and curious war is, you shut a fellow down, you treat if met where any bar is, or help to half a crown.
Okay, background. This poetry first published in 1902. This poem speaks about war. It illustrates about soldier's feeling when he killed the opposite. Thomas Hardy, the creator of this poetry, focused on the inhumanity and cruelty of war. The man he killed tells the reader where a man killed another for the war and the dilemma in his mind. This poem is really show the focus through the element of characterization between tone and diction, because there are details to make the readers feel the subject perspective. So, this poetry tells the reader if war is appealing and makes people in humor after the war.
The next is figurative language. Kinds and meanings of figurative language found in poem The Man He Killed. First, allusion. In the first stanza, in the third line, we should have sat us down to it. The sentence is using an expression of allusion which describes that the man and his enemy would have sat down for a drink and drunk many glasses. And then the first stanza in the fourth line, right many a nipperkin. The sentence is using figure of speech of allusion which describes a large number of glasses of liquors. The nipperkin is actually an old volumetric measurement which is equal a glass of beer from modern days volumetric measurement. The second is hyperbole. In the fifth stanza, in the first line, yes, quiet and curious word is. The sentence is using figure of speech of hyperbole, which is describes about how the man's view about the war he gotten into. The man doesn't quite have the vocabulary to talk about what really went down. And then the third is metaphor. We can find it in the second stanza, in the first line, but ranged as infantry. The sentence is using metaphor expressions, which describes the man's uneasiness feeling as he meets face to his enemy in the battlefield. The sentence is also describing the man's rank in the military, which is the lowest grade. The poet tries to tell that everything changed as they met again in the battlefield where, unfortunately, the man he has met has become his enemy. And then we can find metaphor in the fourth stanza in the second line. offhand, like just as I. The sentence is using an expression of metaphor which describes the enemy's motive of enlist in the military. The plot tries to describe that the man's enemy was enlisting the military due to the lack of money. Here, the man imagines a life for the man he killed, and it was not much different from his own.
Irony. Stanza 3, line 3, just so my foe, of course he was. This sentence is using figure of speech of irony, which describes about his reasoning after killing his enemy. The poet tries to tell that the man is still trying to convince himself of why he shot his enemy in war. But all he's really doing here is saying the same thing over and over again. These men were not knowing for whom they were fighting, what the war was about, or whose side they each were on. B. Stanza 4, line 4. Was out of work, had sold his traps. Similar, in line 3. In stanza 2, I shoot at him as he at me. This sentence is using figure of speech of simile which describes the man's action as well as his enemy. Synecdoche, stanza 5, line 4, or help to help a crown. This sentence is using figure of speech of synecdoche, where it is what will the man do if the other man was not his enemy. Here, the poet tries to tell that if the man and his enemy had been in different life positions.
Diction. First, had he and I but met. By some old ancient inn. Old ancient inn, it defines they had met in other place before they met in war. Second, we should have sat us down to wait. Right many a nipperkin. Right many a nipperkin. Nipperkin means the dead skin. It illustrates if they were set down among the other soldiers' body or in this scary war situation. It is the point from one of the soldiers that he met his enemy in war.
But range as infantry and staring face to face, it means that they meet again as an infantry, and then I shoot at him as he at me, and killed him in his place. They shooting each other's, and one of them did because of it. Both of them are in dilemma, and one of them should did because of demand. The next, I shoot him dead because he was my foe. It means that the sign is an alert or a filter that they must kill each other suddenly, and then just so my foe. Of course he was. It means that the dilemma in the subject's mind that he must kill he in this war. And then that's clear enough, although it to define the subject's feeling.
The truth condition about the subjects. He took his list perhaps offhand like just as A was out of work, had sold his traps, no other reason why. The subject has no works and decide to join military but it was not a good decision.
The theme of this poetry, uh, yes, kind and courage worries. You should a fellow down you had treated if met where any bar is, or help to have a crown. It is trade feeling and the old British money.
This poetry written in conversational tone with speech mark included, so it makes the readers feel the object's perspective as well and understand his feelings. The language is easy to comprehend with the exception. Also, the rhyme and rhythm make the poetry quite fast. This poetry reflecting the dark side of war because the soldiers must kill each other and to make the readers know how humans are victims. There are a lot of information to make the readers understand the subject's perspective. In addition, it makes us really into the poetry. That's why the tone of the poetry promotes of the theme of inhumanity and pessimistic toward the world and the effect of the world. Hardy also illustrates many kind of dilemma and humanity feelings in war because there are a lot of diction that promotes that dislike and staring face to face, I shot him and so on. Also, the poetry illustrates so much unsettling emotions about the situation by the dilemma from the subject.
The men he killed show us the soldiers' life is not easy because they struggles with their humanity side and to show us how brutal the war is.
Okay, that's all. Thank you for watching our video. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.